Specific competition which is the following is true, both species are harmed. It is true that one may be harmed more than the other, but they are both harmed. They would both be better off if there was no competition.
What is eukarya?
Eukaryotes are just the organisms of nucleus. Bacteria don't have nucleus. Now we've got our experiment with mice again, 41. And it's talking about one of the hypothetical outcomes that I mentioned earlier. It says none of the mice in any of the treatments dies. That would mean that there's a problem with positive control. Positive control is not killing mice. So you have to conclude that the experiment is not useful. Nothing useful can be concluded. That's easy. Obviously that's disappointing, but it's better than accepting the results falsely and making mistakes. Which of the following is the most extreme R strategist? Oh, that's tricky to see because mice are often thought of as R strategists too. They have lots of offspring, but clearly they don't match a dandelion's reproductive rate. So the dandelions they're kind of like the great Satan of reproduction, I guess you could say. 43. Which of the following statements is true? Ecology is a science and environmentalism is a political. That is true. Does it mean it's a bad statement? After all, democracy is also a political idea. And so is justice for that matter. It's not a science. 44. You are in the temperate part of the world. Oh, it's that one. I kind of figured this one. Yeah, desert prairie. Oh. That's something so requiring to remember that prairie is what we call the temperate grassland. It's kind of tricky. 45 is basically a drug trial, and it's supposed to do blood pressure things, and it's going to be compared to an older drug. Right. We're going to have three groups. We're going to have one group that gets a placebo. In other words, that's going to be a negative control. We're going to get a group that gets the established drug. That's going to be a positive control. And you're going to get a group that has your experimental drug, and that's going to be your experimental drug. Sometimes in these trials, there's more than one dose of the experimental, but we don't know about that. The question says, I've got a question here. It says, which of the following hypothetical results best supports the idea that the new drug is effective at fighting high blood pressure? And it explains that these are the percentages of patients in each trial that showed an adequate reduction in blood pressure, and high values are best. So we've got an expectation that the placebo is going to be low. Notice all the answers, all the outcomes are either 10% or 100% just to make things easy to follow. So we're going to only accept A or C based on that. We want that to be not responding. We also want our positive control, the second column, the proco. We want that to respond, and that narrows it down to A, but obviously we also need our experimental drug to respond to. So we're basically looking for a negative plus plus here, and that 10 is a negative, relatively speaking, and then we get to plus. So it's going to be A. That's the kind of pattern we like to see. In C, the traditional medication that's known to be effective failed to work, and that's a pretty hard thing to explain when the positive control doesn't work. I mean, there are possible explanations, but at the very least, they have to look at the data more carefully. Sometimes they'll reanalyze the data and see if they can explain unsatisfactory results. There was a trial of a breast cancer medication recently that was fabulously controversial because it did not come back beneficial. And after the trial was done, it didn't show a statistical significance to the advantage for this medication. Some people countered that within a particular grouping of breast cancer patients, it was helpful. That there was a predictor of success that had not been taken into account in the study. So that's one way they could redesign a new study. Or maybe even re-examine the data if they could reliably divide the patients up. And most people Obviously, you have to get a disinterested party to do the analysis. Natural selection cannot occur if a group of organisms is not durable. That is very true. I think that's one of the things that held back the discovery of the concept of natural selection, because before Darwin's time, even before some of his research, it wasn't obvious to all biologists that virtually all species are variable. 47 confused some people. Some organisms do not have tissues. That's true. Single-celled organisms don't have tissues. They don't have organs or organ systems either. Only multicellular organisms have those. So that statement is true. Now, 48 is going to be for the next time. Symbiosis definition. So we won't spoil that. This spoiler there that ruins the surprise. I like the fact that nowadays reviews will tell you whether or not there's spoilers at the beginning. That's cool. They didn't used to do that. 49. There are areas of the world that have the correct total rainfall and average temperature to be classified as savanna, but are classified as Mediterranean instead. This is because in the Mediterranean biome, and in the best answer, the most distinctive trait of the Mediterranean biome is the seasonal distribution of the rain in winter, but not in summer. Spring and fall there, depending on one place or another. But yes to winter, no to summer. And let's see, the rainfall is concentrated in winter. There we go. 50 says, which of the following levels of biological organization is the least generous, so it would therefore be the most specific, the smallest. It's going to fit into the most, it's going to fit into all of the other categories listed. Remember, the biosphere is the most general, and then it's made up of ecosystems, which are made up in part of the community, are made up of populations. And I think that's as far as we go down for this one. So the answer for this one is B. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take a minute or two, so if anybody who wants to take off can do so, and then we'll see if there are any remaining questions people want to ask. So just a couple questions, let's see who's left, and we'll see if there are any